So today we're going to deep dive into how building basic infrastructure can be like a secret weapon against poverty. And we're focusing on Papua New Guinea for this one. And we're looking at how just these fundamental projects can really make a difference, connecting isolated communities to the stuff they really need.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, we're not talking about fancy stuff like skyscrapers and all that.
Right.
We're talking about the really basic things that a lot of us take for granted, but they can actually be huge game changers for people's lives.
Totally.
So we've got some sources here that show how, roads and bridges, clean water, sanitation, electricity, even just basic transportation, those things can really shift things.
Yeah, and it's kind of mind-blowing to think about, but in Papua New Guinea, the geography is wild. You've got like mountains, rivers, thick jungle.
Oh, absolutely.
That really cuts communities off.
Yeah.
And so building these basic links, that's what our material is calling a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is because, just imagine if you're a coffee farmer and you've got all these beans that are ready to be sold.
Yeah.
But there's no road to get them to a market.
Right.
You're talking about days of travel, if it's even possible. Sometimes it's just totally impossible.
It's wild.
Right.
Yeah.
So these bridges, they become vital not just for getting goods to market, but for kids to get to school, for sick people to get to hospitals.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's an artery for everything.
Exactly.
For commerce, for healthcare, for people's lives to actually improve.
Yeah, and you can actually see it in the data, too. Our sources talk about how when new roads are built, you can directly track an increase in farmers' income because now they can actually participate in the market.
That makes total sense.
Right.
And that kind of leads us right into our next thing, which is clean water and sanitation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, something we just totally take for granted.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But when it's not there, it creates so many problems.
Well, disease obviously becomes a huge issue. Yeah.
And people just can't be productive.
Right.
If you're constantly sick, you can't work, you can't go to school. It affects everything.
Absolutely.
And what's really interesting is when communities finally get clean water through something as simple as like a community well or a rainwater tank, and they get proper sanitation systems like toilets, you see this immediate drop in things like diarrhea and typhoid.
Wow.
And that's not just about feeling better. It frees up all this time and money that families were spending on medicine.
Right.
Now they can invest that in food and education.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, one of our sources talked about this village where they put in these clean water systems, and school attendance, especially for girls, went way up.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a really powerful example.
It is. And then there's the power to transform quite literally.
Yeah, literally.
With electricity.
Absolutely.
When rural areas don't have power, it limits everything.
Oh, yeah.
Businesses educate just basic quality of life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a hard ceiling on their potential. And the solutions can be pretty straightforward. Solar panels, small scale hydropower, even just efficient little generators can make a huge difference. Our sources actually use the phrase matters immensely.
They do.
Yeah. It allows people to do things like food processing, even after dark.
Right.
Local tailoring businesses can actually thrive.
Yeah.
And of course, being able to turn on a light at night, being able to charge your phone that connects you to information, to the wider world, it breaks down that isolation.
Yeah, it's amazing to think how much we rely on electricity in our own lives. And it's really no different in these communities.
Yeah, exactly the same principle applies.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's not just about roads themselves. Our sources are also talking about how broader transport systems are really crucial.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in Papua New Guinea, which has all this coastline, all these river communities.
Yeah, you can't always just rely on driving on a road.
Exactly.
So things like community-owned boats, navigating the rivers, or shared vans on those newly built roads, those become lifelines for getting goods to market.
Right, and for people to get around.
And for people to move around, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you're a farmer and you're growing fresh produce, you need to get that to market quickly before it spoils.
Yeah.
Affordable transport is key. And it's not just about getting the food there. It's about getting that money back into the local economy.
Absolutely.
It's about farmers being able to actually profit from their hard work.
Exactly. And it's the same thing in our communities, too.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to get to work, if you can't afford to get to the grocery store,
right,
that's a problem.
Absolutely.
And all of this progress that we're talking about hinges on one key thing that our sources emphasize.
What's that?
Sustainability.
Yeah.
It's great to build all this stuff, but it's got to last.
Exactly, and that's especially true in Papua New Guinea with its climate and its terrain. Things can deteriorate really quickly if they're not properly maintained.
Right.
So our sources are really stressing the importance of training people within the communities to maintain these roads, the water systems, the power setups, and that does two things.
Okay.
First of all, it ensures that the infrastructure lasts longer. But secondly, it creates local jobs.
Right.
It gives people a sense of ownership over these projects.
I like that.
And it makes the whole thing so much more sustainable in the long run.
It does. So when we look at all this together, it seems like investing in basic infrastructure in Papua New Guinea, it's not just about building projects.
Right.
It's about building pathways out of poverty.
Yeah.
It's about giving people the tools and the connections they need to improve their lives.
It's about removing the barriers to opportunity.
Exactly. And those barriers can be pretty simple things.
They really can.
Like a road, clean water, a light switch.
Yeah. Think about it for a second.
Yeah.
What are the things you absolutely rely on in your daily life? Things you probably don't even think about twice.
Yeah.
Those are the things that can make the biggest difference in the lives of people in other parts of the world.
It really puts things in perspective.
It does, yeah. It does.
It makes you realize that those basic needs are actually the foundation for human potential.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been great.
And for everyone listening, be sure to check out our next deep dive for another fascinating look at a pressing global issue.
We'll see you then.